oh God, the hung up, triple T, just getting grown, just everybody, I think it's amazing that there is this new genre of communication being podcasting, and it is just another way for us to make the world feel that much smaller. I think that there are too oftentimes things that are developed with the intention of making the world smaller, which oftentimes are providing more gaps between us. So, the Instagrams of the world and the different social media platforms and even Twitter, you know, the opinions of others, especially when they differ from our own, and the lives of others, even when they differ from our own, it's good to use those platforms to see how other people live, but I sometimes fear that those platforms are actually causing a greater divide between people than they are bringing us together and actually making the world smaller. So I appreciate podcasting for the ability to make the world smaller in this communicative space. And I always tell you guys that I am deeply appreciative of you guys taking this kind of mindfulness journey with me, and hopefully opening up these doors for yourselves, even where you are able to, even if you don't feel as though you're able to resolve a lot of the big issues of the day and in your life, you're at least able to look at your life with a different lens, perhaps not rose-colored lenses, but lenses that'll let you know that you're not the only one out there. And so this week I wanted to talk to you guys about just the difference between loneliness and being alone. I think that I've always thought of myself as a loner, very much an independent kind of person, where I have these moments where I just kind of want to roll dolo. I want to be in my own thoughts. I kind of want to immerse myself in whatever's happening to me emotionally and physically at the time, or mentally, or whatever the case is. And I go through great stakes, great lengths in life to make sure that I allow myself the time of aloneness, if that makes any sense. And I've developed the ability to have aloneness and still be at the place where I can be in a room with other people and still feel this aloneness, where I allow myself to at least, get inside my own head and in my own thoughts, and just allow God to just, even if it's just stillness, even if I don't feel anything, happening, or I don't feel like, oh, God is speaking a word to me right now, that stillness sometimes is exactly what I need. Sometimes, like, you ever get up in the morning and drink like a cool glass of water? If you don't, it's actually really a healthy thing to do, is to get up and, first things first, drink a cool glass of water before you do anything, because even though you've been laying still, your body is still working, your heart is still pumping, things are still happening, so your body temperature is still warm, and it's nice to kind of cool your insides down. But that's a whole nother story. But I liken the level of aloneness sometimes to giving my body that cool cup of water. Things are happening, but I'm still allowing myself the ability to live in a stillness. Now, the converse for me is, I am someone who can easily drift to a place of, from stillness and aloneness, to a place of isolation and loneliness, where I can easily segue myself to feeling like if I am going through something, then the best course of action is for me to isolate myself. You know what I mean? Isolate myself in a way where it's almost like I am living in a shame for the emotions that I am going through at that time. Because I think that a lot of times people who are mindful or people who are spiritual or even people who are religious sometimes can feel like it is because they go around talking about their journey of mindfulness or spirituality or religion sometimes that it is impossible for them to also have a moment where they are then saying to those same people, hey, I'm not sure what's happening in my life right now. I feel anxiety about something, because I think that the misnomer that people have sometimes about spirituality or about even Christianity is that if you take up that cross, that means everything's going to be perfect after. Right? Or because you might be living a life of mindfulness, that means that you have all the answers. Or just because you may be someone who is maybe more spiritually in tuned, that means nothing could ever be wrong, right? And oftentimes that is not the case. I think sometimes that misnomer is what will cause us to isolate ourselves in a way that is not healthy. And I often talk to you guys about the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt tells you that you have done something wrong, right? It is one isolated thing, or it's a level of incidences or what have you. You've done something wrong. You atone for it. Shame is you are wrong. You are the something wrong. So I know that I am a person who oftentimes deals with emotional shame, psychological shame, if you will, where I oftentimes shame myself for having a moment of anxiety or moments of anxiety or moments of depression. I shame myself for it. Oh, well, you are mindful. You're supposed to know better than this. You are a Christian. What will people think if they knew that you were depressed? All the shit that you talk about being mindful. What will people do if they could see you right now huddled up in this ball crying? Because you're just not sure, because you're worried about things to come. And what I will say to you is this. There is no shame in any emotion that you feel. There's no shame. Mindfulness, spirituality, deep religion, those are all, to me, muscles that the more you work at them, the more built they will be, the more you can come to rely on them. What you can't allow yourself to do is isolate yourself because you have a human moment. I feel so bad today because I overate. So instead of, saying, hey, try again, I'm just going to shame myself about it and isolate myself and not tell anybody because I feel so terrible for having this human moment and I don't want anyone to judge me. And like we've studied in the past with mindfulness, the greatest obstacles that you face are not the ones that you face outside of you. It is not the opinions of others. It is not the thought of others. It is the battles that you face within yourself that are oftentimes the ones that are most apt to take you down. So your perception of what you think people are going to think about you, which is oftentimes not even based in fact. But that alone will cause you to retreat in shame. And what I want to impart on you today is that there is no shame in the fact that you are even able to go on the journey. Some days it is hard for me to lace up my moccasins. I'm not going to lie to you, much less to walk a mile in them shoes. Some days are easier than others. You know, is it more upsetting to hear someone say, hey, I'm fighting off depression and anxiety? Or is it more appealing to you to hear, hey, I'm living with it? I'd rather you fight. And if you choose to live with it, I hope that you're living with it at peace. But give yourself a break this week. Give yourself a break. Don't allow shame to let you be isolated. Don't allow guilt to make you feel like you can't come out, or that you can't speak your truth, or you can't feel what you need to feel. Feel your feelings. One thing that I could say for sure is, to me, one of the deepest hindrances to people who are millennials and older, I would say people who are even into their 50s or 60s. One of the things that I've noticed most about people is their inability to feel what they feel. People are so quick to say, well, I don't care. It don't even bother me. Fuck that shit. It's whatever. We are a culture of whatever. We are a culture of I don't care. We're a culture of shrugging it off. But feel your feelings. Because guess what? You think you're shrugging them off, but they are only manifesting itself somewhere else in your life. Somewhere else, that feeling of guilt, hurt, shame, and defeat is coming up somewhere else. So feel it. Feel it so that you can have acceptance and there can be closure. But when you deny yourself the ability to even feel human emotion, just know that you're not then denying the feelings. You're denying yourself the ability to live with the feeling. But the feelings are still there. Just because you don't give credence to them doesn't mean that they go away. Just because you say, I don't care, or whatever, or fuck it, it doesn't make those feelings go away. If anything, they exacerbate them that much more, because now you are literally just like a feeling of hunger, just like a feeling of sadness. When you can no more throw away a feeling of guilt, hurt, shame, or defeat, or loss, or anxiety, or depression. You can no more smush those feelings down than you can for when you are hungry. The problem is that because actual mental, psychological manifestation does not actually, people don't realize the actual physical toll that it takes on them. They're so much quicker to ignore it, as opposed to a feeling of hunger, because it strikes you immediately. You feel physical hunger. But do you know that your body feels guilt? It feels hurt. It feels defeat. It feels shame. It feels anxiety. It feels loss. It feels sadness. So when you stuff that, it only manifests itself somewhere else. It does not go away. But imagine if you allowed yourself to feel it. Don't lay in it. I'm not saying to lay and fester in it like a pig in its slop. What I'm saying is if you need to roll a blunt and be upset tonight and have a glass of wine and put your phone on do not disturb because you are really just over some shit, let yourself be that. If you need to close the bathroom door at work and you need to put your shit in your mouth and scream, allow yourself to feel that. Don't suppress what you feel because you might be ashamed to feel it. The real shame is not allowing yourself the human God-given right to feel what you feel. Even if it's disappointment in yourself. You know, one of the things that I just said to a friend of mine is, I live with old people. And one of the things that I'm realizing is, if you are lucky, right, you will live your life having all the while known that the secret to living is knowing that you have the power to decide how you want to live. The sad thing about life is most people get to the end of their lives, and it isn't until then that they realize that they had the power the entire fucking time. And my greatest hope for all of you that is listening is that I can somehow cut you off at the impasse and let you know that you don't have to wait till you get to the end of your life to realize that you have